Hello and welcome. This is Patrick Giguere, aka the Cosmic Alchemist with Cosmic Alchemist YouTube channel. So, thanks for tuning in today and Happy New Year. So, I say Happy New Year because this is the day, March 21st, 2023. This is the day of the new moon in Pisces. So, it's the solar new year. And FYI, I'm primarily using sidereal Vedic astrology. So this is visible sky astrology. It's not the mainstream Western zodiac. So if all of the places of the planets that I mentioned sound wrong, that's on purpose. I'm using a different zodiac. This is a visible sky. This is the what you see is what you get astrology. I respect the tropical Western system. I think it's a good system, but it's detached from what is actually happening in the sky. It's more seasonal astrology. So, yeah, don't poop your pants too bad if the placement of the planets sound wrong. There's a reason for that. Very good reason for that. So, as I said, Happy New Year. This is the solar new year, and all across Eurasia, this was the solar New Year's Day. You know, November 1st was also a New Year's Day, and that's more of a kind of a lunar New Year. If you're following, the agricultural cycle and the full moon cycle. So, in this case, we're following the new moon. So, new moon in Pisces, it's around this spring equinox. Full moon in Pisces is more around that fall equinox, shortly thereafter. So, yeah, the January 1st, New Year's Day, it's extremely artificial. And it's interesting, January used to be the 11th month of the year. February was the 12th month. So March was, from time immemorial, was the first month. Or if it wasn't called March, it was the month that started around the spring equinox, was the first month of the year. Then when the Christian Empire took over, so the Christian Empire was when the Roman Empire got a new deep state, and they installed Christianity as a state religion. The calendar got screwed with very heavily for centuries. I think there's some incentive. If you're running a religion, there's some religion in cutting people off from their connection with the natural world and the cycles of the seasons. So, interesting stuff. But anyway, we all have places to be, so let's talk about the importance of this. So because this is the day, this new moon in Pisces, sidereal new moon in Pisces, since this is the day of the solar new year, if you look at this chart, you can get a sense for the entire year ahead. So from this spring equinox to the one next year. And this one, I call this channel Cosmic Alchemist Astrology. This is great time for personal alchemy, for the collective alchemy of our, humanity and society and, all of our societies. It's a great time to be alive because a lot of transformation is possible. I think transformation, it's like my teacher says, transformation that was only possible after your death or if you have a near-death experience. Now we can do it consciously. We can choose to go through massive transformation and really become the people we want to be and, become something different than, we were conditioned to be by school, family, government, church. We can be whoever we want to be. So it's an alchemical work. It's an alchemical undertaking, but it's available to us now. So we're going to some very interesting, transformative, wild times. And this year, how you choose to live this year is going to set you up for the next decade. Because the chart for today, for March 21st, 2023, It is the spring equinox, and it also happens to be the day that the sidereal Pisces New Moon falls on. So you look at the chart for this day, we have unbelievable access to intuitive insights and intuitive downloads, and we can learn amazing things about ourselves and what's going on in the world, and about just how spirituality works, and what our relationship is to that. We have massive opportunity to do that here. We can see with so much clarity today, so many insights, so much information is available to us. Or we can just double down on the illusions that we've been living under for the last 2,000 plus years. I'd say even before the Christian Empire went into effect, the Christian Roman Empire went into effect and did a great reset and basically, cut us off from nature and destroyed most of the knowledge and artwork of the classical world. Even before that, when the Roman Empire was pagan, it was going bad for, I don't know, a good century or two. They were actually, it's pretty interesting, they were actually destroying other people's gods. So that has a hell of a blowback, because and then Christian missionaries did this for centuries. But if you're somebody who is capable of going out and destroying other people's spirituality, then you really have none. You're basically just frightened that if you don't follow some, so-called holy rule book, that you're going to be, tortured and tormented for eternity by, your loving God. So, yeah, even when the Roman Empire was pagan, they were getting into destroying other people's spirituality so that they could conquer them and turn them into consumers, basically. So the point to all that is that we've been living under just incredible illusions. We've been very deluded for a long time. So we can just double down on all that. We don't have to take advantage of the insights and the intuition. We can just double down, and we can just keep thinking that our politicians, our governments, our religious leaders, I'm not talking people on like the minister, pastor, priest level. I'm talking above them, when you get to bishops and people like that, councils of elders. We can just double down on the idea that they do everything they do because we're so special and they love us so much. Or we can see the world for what it is, and we can see the real goodness in it, which is in your heart. It's in the hearts of the people around you, even if they disagree with you on these little squabbling points of politics and religion. So you can see the real goodness in the world. And some people, people who have like a Gnostic frame of mind, which is actually Gnosticism, it's basically about seeing the world as a hell and a prison and a giant illusion that needs to be escaped from. Gnosticism has made its way into the truth movement and into even some Christian denominations at this point. So what we can do is we can see past that and see that, we're already living in paradise. We just don't recognize it, and we don't act like it. So it's like we're living in hell and paradise at the same time. So this is a day where we can really see through all the nonsense and really see something worthwhile. But we have to take advantage of that. So yeah, this is pretty interesting. Let's get into this chart. So again, this is taking place on the spring equinox. Spring equinox, this is here in the northern hemisphere. This is where light triumphs over darkness, or I should say in 3 days, because a spring equinox in the northern hemisphere, it's all about the sun has been moving from our perspective on Earth. It's been moving north since December 25th. Now, from our perspective, it's directly over the equator. So you get equal night and equal day. And it basically hangs at that point for around 3 days. And then after that 3-day period, it goes another degree north, and day is slightly longer than night. So the light wins, the day wins over night. So the light is growing in the world. This is a time until the summer solstice, when the sun starts declining again. This is a time of optimism and planning and dreaming and understanding how to put all those dreams and hopes into effect. So this is a very optimistic time of the year. So we're at this balance point where we're going to get more light than dark for the next 3 months. We're in the middle of spring here. And then we happen to have this solar new year, this new moon in Pisces. So this new moon in Pisces takes place at 6 degrees. So a new moon is a conjunction of sun and moon. So sun and moon meet at 6 degrees, sidereal Pisces. Now we've got some other planets in the mix here. We have 5 degrees away, which is conjunct with the sun and moon. We've got Neptune, 1 degree of Pisces. And then on the other side, we have Mercury, 10 degrees of Pisces, so within 4 degrees of the new moon. So we've got Mercury, the intellect, and then Neptune, which is divine love, deep intuition, deep spirituality, but also illusions, delusions, the part of us that can fool ourselves if we're not careful, if we don't put things in the proper context. So there's a bit of a push, a new moon it's already like a negotiation. It's like a planetary war. It's like a push and pull between the sun and the moon. Well, also involved in this, there's basically a push and pull between the intellect and really the deep unconscious, which is Neptune, and, the deep intuition. And, Neptune and Mercury are 9 degrees apart. So they're not strongly conjunct, so they're not communicating very closely and very clearly. So it can be a bit of a push and pull. So a lot to be balanced, I think, with this day of the solar new year and this whole year to come. So we've got that going on. Now, when you look at the lunar mansions, so the lunar mansion that the new moon is taking place in, it's within the lunar mansion of Forcus. Forcus is a Saturn-ruled lunar mansion. It's in the sign of Pisces, ruled by Jupiter, but it's ruled by the lunar mansion is ruled by Saturn. So real quick on the lunar mansions. In the system I'm using, every zodiac sign, the 12 sun signs, are made up of 27 lunar mansions, so smaller constellations. So there's about 2.5 of these lunar mansions within every sun sign. So Forcus, Saturn ruled, but within a Jupiter ruled sign. So it has a balanced energy to it, because Jupiter and Saturn are kind of opposite complements. So Jupiter is optimism and expansion. Saturn is realism and limitation and some constriction. And you need both to live in this world, to be able to manifest, to have a fulfilling life and an organized life that's not total chaos. Because Jupiter can take on too much and it gets chaotic. So Forcus is interesting because it has these Jupiterian and Saturnian energies. It's a broad spectrum kind of an energy. So Jupiter rules the heights and the heavens, and Saturn rules the depths. And interestingly, Forcus has a lot to do with meditation. So having the new moon in Pisces here, it's one of these years, and we get, one of these every so often. It's basically a year where we're being told, take time to sit down every now and then, or you're going to fall down. Forcus has a lot to do with meditation. So this is a year where it's important to Take time for yourself. Take time to be isolated. Understand what you're feeling and what's on your mind. And just give yourself time to acknowledge how you're feeling, what you're thinking, and to be objective about it. And meditation is a tool for objectivity where you can sort of step out of your feelings while being mindful of them. So instead of just being tossed about, on the waves of your feelings, you can acknowledge them, but look at them objectively and, kind of not be tortured by them, really. That's the value of meditation. So important year for this. Now, Mercury is also in focus here. So Mercury is the intellect. Mercury is being the intellect. It's part of the mind. So the moon rules the mind, and the mind is the emotional, intuitive consciousness. And the intellect is a small part of the mind. The intellect is your problem solver. It solves math problems. It does logic. It organizes things. But it's not as wise or as expansive as the mind or the soul, the moon or the sun. So, but the intellect can really get high on itself, and it can convince itself that it is as powerful and as expansive and as wise as the mind and the soul. So having Mercury in the mix here, I think this is very telling. It's awaiting instruction from the mind and the soul. Now, you can look at the sun and moon as king and queen, and then Mercury is a prince, or it's a prince and a page. So a court page. A court page is basically a messenger for the king, somebody who just, does things that the king needs to be done, but carries messages for the king. So a court page is very close to the throne, knows what the king and queen are saying and thinking. So, in this Mercury, this prince or this page, it wants to be king and queen, but it's not, because it's something very different. So on the day of this new moon in Pisces, Mercury is here, close to the new moon, within 4 degrees within Pisces. So this is the day when you can get your intellect to just stop all the chatter, stop feeling high on itself, and just get it to basically submit to some spiritual guidance and spiritual teaching. And it's a day where the intellect can allow the intuition in. So this is very important. So, but we also have Neptune in the mix here. So Neptune is a higher octave of Venus, not Jupiter. Neptune is a higher octave of Venus. So Venus deals with pleasure, deals with sensuality. It deals with friendships, social activity, diplomacy, mediation, deals with love, but it's the part of love that has a physical component to it. So it can deal with sexual love, the sensual part of love. Neptune, it's basically on a higher order. So it's more of like unconditional, spiritual, divine love. Now, this is all well and good. We need this. This is a very important part of life. But this is a part of us that can be manipulated, and actually gets manipulated every day. It gets manipulated by politics and religion all the time, because it's the part of us that can think that we know better than other people, and that we need to convince those people that they need to think and live like we do. And this, for many centuries, again, since the Roman Empire became this, Christian Roman Empire, and then this whole thing with evangelism started, a lot of people were converted to Christianity, and then the Muslims did this later. They were converted at the point of a sword, at the threat of death. So when people are in that position and they're doing that to other people, it's because their Neptune's out of balance. Their sense of divine, unconditional, universal love is out of balance. And they end up telling each other, like, I'm forcing you to do this because I care about you so much. So what does that sound like? It sounds like all this business with the needlecraft and the masks and all that shit we've been going through for the last 3 years. So, it was a 3-year anniversary on March 13th, right? So we have to be careful of this Neptune. Neptune is home in Pisces, okay? So Neptune rules the deep unconscious, which is Pisces, and the spiritual dimension, which is Pisces. So to have a balanced Neptune, to not be manipulated through your love, to not be just totally blinded by your illusions and delusions. You have to have a sense of self. A sense of self is extremely important, because when you don't have a sense of self, you basically write blank checks to people in positions of power, or even the spiritual beings in positions of power that don't have your best interests at heart, or don't have the best interests of people who are outside of your ethnic or religious group at heart. It's like when in the Bible, when Joshua was going to cross the River Jordan to Canaan, and Jehovah Yahweh signs off on a genocide, and he's like, yeah, just cross the river, kill every man, woman, child, and livestock animal you encounter. And people doing something like that, they think they're doing something out of a feeling of love for their tribesmen and their fellow believers. Well, that's Neptune out of balance. That's you getting manipulated by your love. That's the Soviet Union, Nazi Germany, the Crusades, the Great Reset, all of it. So this is always a thing to watch out for. And Neptune is in a different lunar mansion than the Moon, Sun, and Mercury. Neptune's going to be in Chimera. Chimera was a mythological creature, had the head of what? A lion, a goat, and a serpent. And I think it breathed fire or it spit venom. It depends on what version of the story you read. But it's like a harbinger of like storms and doom and all that kind of stuff. Now, the energy of that lunar mansion, Chimera, it's all about making a difference in the world. And people can get manipulated when they want to make a difference in the world, but they're not necessarily going out there and helping people firsthand. They're basically giving their faith and their blind trust to some leader who's going to do it for them. So there's a lot of this going on in the world right now. So really, this combination of Chimera and Forcus, people want to be giving, and they want to help people, but the big thing with advice and help is it's best to give it when it's solicited and when it's asked for. And every institution in this world, educational, political, religious, they love to give unsolicited advice because they think they know what's better for other people. See what I mean? So this is a thing to be careful about this whole year. And, we've been taught, for the last, again, I'm always going back to this Christian Roman Empire thing. We've been taught to be codependent for the last 1700 years and to just sacrifice ourselves to leaders and to people we care about. But when you're constantly sacrificing yourself for people, you end up getting angry and resentful because you gave nothing to yourself. But you didn't ask what would be expected of you. You give more than you expected to. So you need a sense of self when you're going to give to people. You can't give to yourself and help yourself. You can't give anything to anybody, truly. Well, you can't give anything you're not going to resent giving. You know, it's like when people just run around and they give unsolicited help and advice, when they're not acknowledged the way they want to be acknowledged, they're like, I don't ask for much, but when I do, or, you know, they like to go around like martyrs about them. Nobody appreciates them. And it's like, well, nobody asked you for your help. So it's on you, dude. And, you know, yeah, we have all kinds of politicians and charities right now trying to suck loyalty, support, and money out of us to, you know, especially here in America, our own country's collapsing. People can't pay their bills, but we're going to send billions to Ukraine so that a bunch of American and European corporations can take Ukraine over and then try to take Russia over. It's like, give me a fucking break. So, yeah, watch who you give your blood, sweat, and tears to and your emotions to. Don't be manipulated by your love. So, yeah, with Neptune in the mix with this new moon, that's a possibility. You could be manipulated by your love, or if you have a sense of yourself, you can put yourself into the proper context with this divine unconditional love. And if you have boundaries, you know what is reasonable to give to other people and what you need to give to yourself. And again, having Sun, Moon, and Mercury in Forcus, which has so much to do with meditation and quiet time, taking time for yourself to be, you know, isolated and just chill out, take inventory of your thoughts and feelings. If you can do that, you will put your sense of love in the right context, and you will not be manipulated, and you will not force advice and help on other people. So yeah, this is a big deal though. This Mercury, again, it's in Pisces. It's next to this, it's conjunct with this new moon. And both of the rulers of Pisces, Jupiter and Neptune, are in Pisces at this time. So Mercury, the intellect, this is an opportunity for the intellect to really download intuition, which it normally has no access, well, doesn't have much access to. If you work at it, it does. You can train your intellect to be able to step aside more and more. But this is a real opportunity for just the intellect to step aside and be like, oh, wow, there's all kinds of amazing things going on in this universe I don't know about. I better learn something. So, pretty neat. On this day as well, we have Saturn at 7 degrees Aquarius, sidereal. This is conjunct with the natal moon of the United States of America. So for the world, Saturn and Aquarius, this is basically, you can look at Saturn as a champion of the underdog. Saturn deals with public service to just the common people. Aquarius is the sign of we the people, we the common people who have to go to work every day. So for the world, this is basically Saturn fighting for the people. Now with America's chart being conjunct with the natal moon, this is the third house of mass media and communication. So this means that there is a karma for things to be revealed through mass media that have been hidden previously, and for massive media deception to be revealed to the people. Not all the people will acknowledge it, but the information will be out there. And with this whole banking fiasco going on, we're getting a real sense of what a false house of cards the banking system has been. So, pretty interesting. And one little tidbit about Saturn too. Saturn is at that 7 degrees Aquarius, it's in a lunar mansion called Aegion. Aegion is the abode of Neptune, or Poseidon, the god of the ocean. So it's his palace beneath the ocean. That deals with deep intuitive insights. So deep intuitive insights, deep unconscious intuitive insights that have been swept under the rug that media would rather not deal with are going to have to be revealed through the media, because Saturn is the judge of the cosmos and makes us follow the divine law and the natural law thing. So a lot of that going on. So again, with this new moon in Pisces, with Neptune and with Mercury there, and Jupiter's there, the intellect Mercury is really getting an opportunity to learn. It's being told, pay attention, learn. You can get not all the secrets of the universe, but you can get many of them at this time. What else? Yeah, we have Venus and Rahu, the dragon's head, the north node of the moon, conjunct in Aries. Venus is at 11 degrees, Rahu's at 10. And they are, let me check my notes here. Oh, yeah. The lunar mansion of Dioscuri. So Dioscuri, they were twins and they were horsemen. They were both, let me get this straight. They both had the same mother, but one was the son of a mortal man, one was the son of Zeus. So one was mortal, one was immortal. So another name for these guys, Castor and Pollux. The Vedic name for this lunar mansion, instead of Dioscuri, it's the Ashwinis. So these Ashwini Kumars. So after their deaths, they became guardians of humans and of humanity, and they would ride in on their horses, on their spirit horses. They would come to the rescue of humans who invoked them. So when you put Venus and Rahu together, what you get is you can get an obsession with comfort and with all of the sensual pleasures of the world, and with friends and social activity and romance and all that stuff. So when you put that in Aries, in this lunar mansion, this Dioscuri or this Ashwini, people are feeling their physical environment being threatened with, these rumors and these possibilities of food shortages and, financial collapse and, warfare in certain countries and maybe civil war in this country within the next few years. People feel a little threatened here. So they're invoking protection. And, I think when you invoke spiritual protection, if you're being genuine, I think you get it. But you have to be willing to follow that guidance. Your attachments can stop you from following that. So with Venus and Rahu together, it's like, yeah, the spiritual help and protection's there, but can you let go of your material attachments if you need to in order to keep yourself safe in the long term? That'll be determined. It's TBD for all of us, right? So another interesting thing on this day, we have an in conjunction. We have an interesting aspect between Mars and Pluto. So Pluto is 8 houses away from Mars. Yeah, Pluto's 8 houses away from Mars. Mars is 6 houses away from Pluto. So they're at this 150-degree aspect. So at a 180-degree aspect, when planets are opposite signs, they can communicate with each other. When they're 150 degrees apart, it's a communication breakdown. So you've got Mars in Prometheus. So Mars is 4 degrees of Gemini. It's back in the low degrees of Gemini. Gemini is thinking, it's intellect, it's communication, it's mass media, it's markets, the financial markets, it's travel. Mars, among other things, is a detective. It's a warrior, a surgeon, a builder, but it's a detective. Especially in Gemini, it's a detective. It's going to go crawling through the information, and it's going to show people information that a lot of people would rather not have shown to the world. And it's in Prometheus. So Prometheus was a demigod who stole fire from the gods of Olympus to give it to humanity. So it stole intellectual, spiritual brilliance and enlightenment from the gods to give to humans. So Prometheus is basically synonymous. He's an analog with Loki and Lucifer, who are all about flashes of spiritual and intellectual insight and brilliance, which your government, your church, your educational institutions do not want you to have. Advertisers do not want you to have. And this Prometheus, Lucifer, Loki, they're all champions of the common people. They help them to have hope. They help us to have hope. Now, Pluto. Pluto is in Natura. Pluto deals with, it's the god of the underworld. It deals with the soul's evolution, deals with transformation. Pluto can also deal with sneaky shit, sneaky leaders, sneaky people. Now, especially Pluto in Capricorn, it's about top-down, pyramid-type hierarchy. And it's about somebody in so-called authority says they want something done. People do it. They say jump, people say how high. And it's in Natura. So Natura, goddess of the natural world. Now, an interesting way you can look at this. The globalists are using environmentalism, which is a very good thing, but they're using it to manipulate people. And they're not giving people all the facts. They're cherry-picking facts about environmentalism, and they've cooked it up into this great reset globalist agenda. So, and this has to do with Neptune too, because people are getting manipulated with their love of the planet and the environment. And these leaders in Capricorn, Pluto and Capricorn, these sneaky leaders who think that they're absolute rulers, who, don't have to have any consent from the people they wish to rule. They think they can just turn our lives upside down, like these Klaus Schwabs and, King Charleses and Jeff Bezos types, people like that, George Soros. So it's interesting. So, Mars is uncovering this information. Mars is anger. Mars is bringing out media anger. But it's not clearly seeing this Pluto in Capricorn. So, like any other time, basically the media can help us to get angry at the wrong people for the wrong reasons. So, interesting on this day too. And, another little sort of interesting thing that's going on here, don't want to take too long with this, but another interesting thing that's going on here is that Jupiter and Neptune have not been in Pisces together on a spring equinox and on a solar new year with the new moon in Pisces since 1702. So Neptune has this, 155, 56 year orbit, but it missed Jupiter back in, 1858. So 1702, they were together. And I think those early 1700s, that was, I think, the beginning of what I call the Illuminati cycle. And it's when the corporate empires were really coming into their own. So this Illuminati cycle, basically, Freemasonry was hijacked by German aristocrats. And they sponsored people like Adam Weishaupt, who was a former Jesuit, who was the head of this order of the Illuminati that revealed itself to the world on May 1st, 1776, in which drove the Age of Revolution in the 1770s and 80s and into the early 1800s. So these German aristocrats sponsored all that. Now, these same German aristocrats eventually married into pretty much all the royal houses of Europe, and the ones they couldn't marry into, they killed, like the French Bourbons. And even they married into, they killed, like the Romanovs in Russia eventually in the early 1900s. But they made their way into the bloodlines of the royal houses of Europe. You know, it's like the British royal family with the Windsors used to be called Saxe, Coburg, and Gotha. Prince Philip, who was married to the late Queen Elizabeth, he was the House of Battenberg, aka Mountbatten. They were Prussians. So Prussia, not Russia. Prussia was a kingdom in the northeast of Germany, stretching into Poland and into the Baltic states like Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. It was this northeastern German kingdom, which was founded by the Teutonic Knights, who were they were a bunch of gangsters, like the Knights Templar. They got a charter from the Pope, and they did a crusade up in northeastern Europe. So they started this kingdom, Prussia. Prussia, basically through military force, united Germany in the 1870s, and united Germany did not exist. I think it was 1870 or 71. So these Prussian German aristocrats have been a driving force in the last, especially in the last 300 years. So I'm not talking about the German people. I think the German people are amazing people. I'm talking about their aristocrats. And now Klaus Schwab, he's one of these. He's one of these German Prussian type aristocrats. These German Prussian aristocrats, they also sponsored Nazi Germany along with Wall Street. They had sponsored communism, and but then the Soviet Union got out of their control, so they had to create an opponent to the Soviet Union, which was Nazi Germany, which also started getting out of their control. They're inbred aristocrats, and they're psychopathic, and psychopaths are incompetent. So for centuries and centuries, the world has been, or large parts of the world have been ruled by people like this, but for the last 300 years, you've had these psychopathic Prussian German aristocrats really running the show. So I think with Jupiter and Neptune being together in Pisces again on this solar new year and spring equinox for the first time in over 300 years, 21 years, I think this is the end of this Illuminati cycle. Now, there will always be secret societies and hidden power, but I think this one's coming to an end. So that's a big positive. So I need to wrap this up for the time being, but really interesting and exciting day. So Happy New Year. And I'll talk more about a lot of these topics later on. And if you've not had a reading with me, I highly recommend it. It's a great way to start your new year out. A tool like astrology helps you to basically chart your course through life. You get your spiritual blueprint for how you work, and you can understand how it relates to the coming events and how you can navigate the coming years. And the best way to do that is to be your truest self. And that's what astrology, runes, I Ching, it's what all forms of divination are all about. It's about learning how to be your realest self so you can live your best life. So I'm out of here. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good one.